So you have a unique honor today. We actually get to tour the Van Zant's house. It is now an Airbnb rental, and the owners of it were nice enough to allow us to do a walkthrough tour. Here out front you see they've got a freebird garden. Well today, Mr. Gene Odom, this is my honor to meet you. You have a vast history and I can't wait to hear about it. You were Ronnie's best friend, childhood friend, and head of security for the band.
Right, yeah. He had a couple of best friends. Me and Bill Ferris was his top #1s.
Now how much does this house resemble their growing up? I know they lived here for quite a while.
It don't resemble the original house at all, because Lacey added on to it. The original house went from right past the fireplace to right past that column. And that's the kitchen. And Lacey added on to that, and he added on to that, and he added on to that, and he added on to that again, and added on to the back. So it's a totally different house than what it used to be. The inside.
Somewhere in the middle is that house.
Yeah, I'll show you the original house inside.
Let's go on in. Show us where everything was and what you remember. All right, now we're in the living room.
This is the living room, and the original, that wall would have been the end of the original house.
Okay.
You know, back in the day.
How was it decorated in here? Was there anything special about the house, or was it a kind of plain house?
The thing that was special about it, you know, when the plane crashed, and years later, was all the gold and platinum records that was on these walls. These walls, gold and platinum records were all inside here. And that's all you could see was gold and platinum. LYNYRD SKYNYRD, gold and platinum. And then later, I think 38 Special had some records in that, but this mostly was all SKYNYRD. Original SKYNYRD.
Now we're going into the kitchen.
Kitchen. The kitchen is original. All those cabinets, not the table, of course, but those cabinets and these cabinets are original. And that paneling goes back a long way. I don't know how far it goes back, but this was original. And back then, this was the end of the house, and that was the carport. And Lacey enclosed that, and he added on to the other side, added a storage unit or something on the back side of this. But this was the carport. We used to run across the top of this thing and ride those bamboos to the ground, jump off the roof.
No kidding, you'd run on the roof and jump and grab them and fly down?
Yeah, we'd get them and ride them to the ground because they spring back up, you know.
Now Gene, what was this, like a middle class, lower class? What kind of household was this for the time? Would you describe the Van Zants?
Blue collar.
Very blue collar?
Yeah, Lacey was a truck driver. They got in a bad break in '65 and that ended his truck driving career. But, and then, you know, Ronnie was working when he was 15 years old, and Daddy at 15 or 16. And blue collar, like this area back then. Now, back in those days, we called it shanty town. Now they call it the bottom. And you can see why, you know, but everything goes down.
Now, was Lacey supportive of the band? I mean, how was that? Because you said Ronnie was a father when he was young. Was that supportive, or was he like, go get a job, you got to take care of the kid?
Well, when he got Nadine pregnant, it was, you know, you got to get married now, you got a baby coming, and you got a family to take care of, and Ronnie went to work, you know, and they did him, he wasn't even going to have a driver's license.
Wow.
People don't know that story, so I'm not going to tell that on here.
Clemson lamp.
Storage stuff, Lacey added onto that.
Okay, over there.
Back into the bedroom, because I want to watch that. Yeah. This was Lacey's and sister's bedroom back then, and that was, like I said, that was the end of the house right there.
There's a bathroom in here. Very old style. Probably the original.
This was the original bath. They added that on the years and years back. This was Ronnie's and Donnie's and Johnny's. Of course, Ronnie was gone by the time Johnny was a baby. He stayed with Lacey and sister. But this was Ronnie's bedroom. and Donnie's. This was added on years later when Lacey did a little studio thing for Johnny and turned it into two apartments back there, but this was added on. This was the end of the house right there. This was Ronnie's bedroom, and there used to be, this was added on here. This closet was added on, and that one you could see was. This one might have been original. That was added on. There was a chest of drawers in here. And right through this wall, which is the little apartment where that girl lives in, this is where the girls, Marlene and Darlene, that was their bedroom right back there.
Okay.
On that end.
We're gonna take off from Ronnie's bedroom now and just give you guys one last look of it. Actually, we'll go from, this was the recording and apartment area that he said Lacey built for Johnny, but here's a whole view of the room. Alright, we're gonna head out of here and continue on with the Ronnie Van Zant tour of today. Same door Ronnie would have walked out to start his day every day.
This on the back of the shirt, put your artwork on the front. Make it a special t-shirt design.
Lakeshore Athletic Association.
This is the ball field, it was called Criswell Field back then. I'm pretty sure it might still be. Of course, the football and soccer fields, all those things wasn't out there. And none of this other stuff was there, but third base is where Ronnie hit the line drive and hit Bob Burns in the shoulder behind the head and knocked Bob down, and Ronnie runs over to Bob and finds out that his name's Bob Burns, and Ronnie finds out that Bob plays drums. And Ronnie says, hey, we need a drummer, come. So that's how Bob Burns became part of LYNYRD SKYNYRD. Ronnie hitting him with the baseball.
Bob was a great addition to the band, wasn't he? I really loved his feel.
And all of their hit material, early stuff, Bob Burns did it.
And was that story true about when they were in LA? So, like the power went out in the studio or something, so they went and saw The Exorcist and Bob just lost it after that or something? I think I heard that story somewhere.
Well, there's in an accident, he killed a girl, hit her Jeep. And at the time he did that, he was bad on mushroom.
I was like tripping.
Yeah, he was bad. And they went to Japan, he killed a girl. And they went to Japan and he just had a nervous breakdown. I'm talking about completely shot, nervous breakdown from...
Like, could he play at all, or did he just, that was it?
No, for years he was institutionalized, back and forth, and it really did affect his brain.
I can imagine.
The combination of killing the girl and the drugs, and just, it broke him down. You a Tim Tebow fan?
Oh yeah! Thank you to the Tim Tebow Foundation. Pop Warner, home of Tim Tebow.
This is where Tim Tebow got started, right here.
So we'll take a look right through the fence, and Gene was saying that right where that, up the third baseline, right where that other fence is, that's where Bob got hit. Good thing too. I guess maybe if that didn't happen, Ronnie would have never talked to him, and eventually Bob would have joined the band. Actually, I'm pretty sure it's at Bob's house where the band first started jamming. So not only the Pop Warner home of Tim Tebow, but the official starting place of LYNYRD SKYNYRD, or the 1%. Then from the parking lot of where that field is, there's an elementary school over here. Gene said that's where they went to elementary school. Huh.
When they started this, we went to that school as kids. And then Jacksonville, in the early 60s.
You and Ronnie both went here?
Yeah, late 50s. the county of Duval consolidated and made the whole city the county. This is the largest city in the world in land area mass, 700 square miles. When they did that, that changed the boundaries. You got it?
Yeah.
That changed the boundary lines. And I lived south of Woodcrest, so I stayed here. And if you live north of Woodcrest, you was transferred to Ramona, so Ronnie was transferred up to Ramona.
All right, we're at our next location. This one's got not only Ronnie history, but this has some Gene history too. Gene, what's our story here? What was this place?
This was Ronnie's brother-in-law, Bill Morris's auto supply, called Morris Auto Supply. Me and Ronnie worked here until we were transferred over. His brother started a new business, Morris Auto Supply, over off of University and Beach Boulevard. Sent Ronnie over there as a manager, and I went over as parts runner.
Do you know about what age you guys would have been when you started working here?
Well, it was 1969 when I started, because I got laid off iron working, and I worked here, and then when I got drafted working for Bill Morris in '69, May of '69. So Ronnie went to work for his brother-in-law. After he got Nadine pregnant, that was '66. Timmy was born in '67, July '67. So he was working here then, and so that was '66. So Stone, he went to work for Bill before '66. I don't know if it was '64, '65. And I got drafted in '69, and so I got out of the Army in '71. And he was still working for Bill Morris and played on the weekends and traveling. And so I think 71-ish, 72 is when they started traveling enough that they could make some money. And,
so selling auto parts was kind of like, well, he managed it, but that was like his last day job, probably.
Yeah, exactly. Selling auto parts was his last day job.
Now, I had heard a story that you got to go on a trip with his dad because of Ronnie's accomplishments here. What happened there?
Well, back then, it
was like one of the auto manufacturing.
Yeah, not auto line, but anyway, the big auto parts manufacturer. If you did so much money over the year, that corporation would hand out all expense paid vacations to the owners if you did so much money. And so that year, Bill, was all expense paid to Honolulu, Hawaii. And Bill and his wife, Ronnie's sister, couldn't go. And so they gave the tickets to Lacey. And so sister wouldn't fly. Ronnie wouldn't fly. Ronnie hated to fly. He wouldn't fly. And the other kids were too young. So Lacey asked me, he said, hey, well, you want to go to Hawaii, all expense paid vacation? I went, yeah, man. Let's do it. So we went to Honolulu, and all expense paid. And when I came back from Honolulu, my draft papers was in the mailbox.
No way.
May the 10th, 1969.
Good thing you went on the trip, huh?
Yeah, yeah. But Ronnie wouldn't fly. He hated it, and that's how his demise came.
Pretty cool to get to see that today. A lot of days Ronnie would have spent here.
Boathouses down there where the best fish started. Fishing would start. Fishes Creek as kids all the way up to he died.
You said you just drop a boat in the water and you and Ronnie go out there fishing.
Down here, but we didn't have one motor. As kids, we just drop that boat in down here and slide down the bank, paddle down there, fish, and paddle back.
Nice. You ever heard the song "Give Me 3 Steps"? Give me 3 steps, mister. Give me 3 steps towards the door. Well, I was cutting a rug down at a place called The Jug. This is it. The Jug Saloon. Gene was telling me that the pecans that fall from the tree here at The Jug are some of the best pecans you can ever have. So Gene, you said at the time this wasn't even called The Jug. What was it? What was this place?
Called the WT West Tavern. The locals called it the WT. WT West, a redneck joint. You can get your ass whipped in there right quick like in the old days.
Just like the song, huh?
Yes, sir, buddy.
Gene was telling me that it wasn't always pink. That's something that's recently happened. He said it's went through a lot of ownership changes over the last couple years. So the people that owned it for a long time got busted for watering down the liquor. So they sold it, and then so it just went through a lot of hands and everything. And he said at the time it would have been like a yellowish beige color. All right, this is our next stop. There you can see Freebird Lane.
Right down this road here, and this road you would actually, it would go right up there, and you went right down through those trees right there, right down through the opening right between those trees is where the original road, dirt road into the Hell House was.
Back there. Even though we showed it in the LYNYRD SKYNYRD vlog, we'll show it again. This is in a housing community that they're creating now. But the Hell House was right here. Right there. Just this old wooden shack. Hot as hell all the time. That's how they got the Hell House name, and spent hours out here just writing and working on everything, jamming everything out. This is the first place that they practice Freebird, I heard. So think of that. And it's crazy, Freebird wasn't even a hit song. Al Cooper said, he goes, it was better than a hit song. It was an anthem, and Anthem sold records. So instead of it selling singles, that song helped them sell records. I heard that they used to have so many fans coming out here, they had to have like their friends sit out on the roads to stop people from coming out here with guns.
Well, there was locals, rednecks around here, that they like to listen to the music. Yeah, they still do, actually. I don't see the big old gator, but he's around here.
There's a gator out here?
There's a big old bull gator. The locals call him Chomp. Probably 13 feet long and probably weighs 600-700 pounds. He's a big old bull gator.
Holy cow.
I was out here a few weeks ago and he swam across over that way.
Oh, you saw him recently?
Yeah, he's still here.
Now, can we talk about Judy? You and I were talking about how much recognition she deserves, because when they came out here, Ronnie kind of got to quit his job and focus more on the music.
Well, Judy was a big part, a big, huge part of SKYNYRD making it and being, you know, who they were, because Ronnie could concentrate on traveling, and, you know, wasn't big money back then traveling, but
look at where they went, though. They became one of the most famous bands in the history of music, thanks to her.
Judy worked at, I think it was Red Lobster, a seafood joint, and she was a waitress, and she made pretty decent money, and they needed money to go up to the country or around to record in muscle shoals or to go do a gig. Judy would help them out with money, and she helped Ronnie out. She helped the band members out, and Judy's a big reason SKYNYRD became SKYNYRD, because of her help.
That's amazing.
Yeah, she's big time. She was a.
Sometimes the unsung heroes have the biggest part that you don't know. You know, if he would have kept working that, maybe the motivation for performing would have been gone, or who knows.
It's very possible, but after he left, I'm not sure what, I got back in '71 from overseas in the Army, how long he worked for Bill, his uncle, his brother-in-law. But Judy helped. Judy was big time helper of, I don't know if I would say making the band, but making them go from point A to point B. She was big time.
Hey, you got to have the time to create. That's the number one thing to being an artist, so she helped facilitate that.
Oh yeah, no doubt about that. She was a big part of SKYNYRD of the early days, and of course up to '77. You know, when they started making a decent living. I'm not sure if it was '71 or '72 that they could make a living traveling. But Judy was there. She was always there, big time.
Really cool to be out here checking out the old waters where their music would have reverberated.
Alan's mother was always there, big time also.
Alan's mother? Oh yeah, I remember that.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Big supporter.
But you can believe Judy was a major part of helping them boys out.
Just so cool to come out here and get a check out where the Hell House was. I mean, those songs, Tuesday's Gone, Simple Man, Freebird, Sweet Home Alabama. I mean, God, the legendary hits are endless. And they would have spent all that time creating out here, just showing up every day. Hey, you got an idea? Okay, let's work on it. Here's our new song. I honest to God can't believe that I'm standing here on hallowed ground. The Hell House, Lynyrd Skynyrd Hell House.
2 days before the plane crash, we were in Lakeland, Florida. That old Cadillac, 1957. We were in Lakeland, Florida, and so we were rooming together. And so I told Ronnie, I said, hey, I said, now that we got this point, I got a legal team, everything's set up. Can I tell everybody in the band what I'm really doing? Ronnie said, hell no, man, nobody knows what we're doing. Just me and you. He said, my wife don't know what we're doing. And I said, well, how about the Prez? Gary was called the Prez. Ronnie gave Gary the title President because Ronnie didn't want no titles.
Oh.
And so I said, how about the Prez? He said, the Prez will cut my throat and stab me in the back the first chance it gets. I said, what? Gary? He said, hell yeah, Gene. So he said, nobody knows what we're doing but me and you. And so he says, I'm not even sure I want to go through with it because you're not ready to be a manager. And I don't know if you know what you're talking about all the way out in the top. We kept talking. I said, well, Bill Ferris is going to be manager. And you've already talked to him about that. And I said, and Bill Ferris was Ronnie's other best friend. He was the best friend of Ronnie Van Zant for sure. And so we kept talking, and I said, he said, you got a legal team all together? Yeah, I said, everybody ready to go. And he says, so what? How I convinced him for him to take over his management because they were stealing his money, a bunch of his money. They were stealing probably 90% of the band's money. And so, his management. I showed him how the merchandising business worked. He didn't know nothing about that. And he said, well, I said, you know who owns your merchandising? I said, your manager and the secretary owns your merchandising. You don't even own your merchandising business. Well, they put money in savings. I said, bullshit. All that money's going in their pocket. Yep. So when I showed him how the merchandising business worked, he was astounded. And he says, all right, okay. All right, it's on. He said, as soon as the tour's over, the next day, have the legal team take over. And I said, I want to fire Artemis. And he said, no. All that's got to be done legal. He said, all that's got to be done by lawyers and everything's got to be done legal. And so I said, all right. And so,
Artemis was the drummer at that point.
Yeah. Ronnie and Steve Gaines were talking about bringing Bob Gaines, Steve's brother, drummer, into the band. And it was going to happen. The next album would have been Bob Gaines would have been a drummer. And so we talked about it. And so the merchandising business, the merchandising people, which there were two of them, one on the East Coast, one on the West Coast, big merchandising business. I knew the man personally that started the merchandising business. And they were stealing, God, I'd say 75% of all the band's merchandising. And coliseums and stadiums, and nobody knew how to handle that. They didn't know nothing about that. But merchandisers were pocketing shit. 75-80% of the money in cash was going out the back door at coliseums and stadiums and stuff. And nobody knew nothing about it. But I knew how it worked. When I showed him that, I said, all right, it's on. Let's do it.
So you were supposed to be the manager, basically. Or you were going to...
I'd have been road manager security. Bill Ferris would have been manager because Bill has a college education. Bill was and still is extremely smart. And I wouldn't have been manager material. I could have been road manager and security and do merchandising. And Bill Ferris would have been the man. He'd have been the manager and been the big man. Him and Ronnie were real close. Really tight friends, tight buddies. Drinking buddies. I was fishing buddies. But that's a story about that, you know, and there's more to it. But
all right, we've made it over to the Jacksonville Memory Gardens. This was the original burial place of Ronnie Van Zant. So there's the original burial, and you can see some people left some bullets up there.
Some bullets, yeah, a couple of, the Luger. Probably a 380. And a kind of black rock. And then Sharon on it.
So he was originally here, and then
when he passed away, Judy had him put here temporarily. He was in a temporary thing up there until they had this built here. And he was here, and somebody broke into the back of it, partially pulled his casket out. They didn't get into his casket because the caskets are locked.
Right, but it was like kind of like hanging out the back, right?
Hanging out the back. It wasn't pulled all the way out. And about that time is when they got somebody was coming. And they did get into the back of Steve's, and they took his urn out and pulled a bag of his ashes out and put them back. I think they spilled a few.
Yeah, that's what I heard.
Yeah, the bag caught on the latch on the urn and
spilled some of the ashes.
Few of his ashes. But then they took off from the noise. And then when that happened, the Van Zants had that plot over there, and then Judy wasn't involved in it because she was his widow, but she'd remarried, and that had no.
So she lost her.
Yeah.
Say.
And then it became next of kin. Notify the next of kin. And his next of kin was his two daughters, one by Judy, and one by Nadine. And so the Van Zants wanted him buried over there where the Van Zant plot was. And so the Van Zants overpowered Judy, kind of like said, and had him moved out there to Riverside Memorial Park.
Yeah. So that's why. I had heard a rumor that they said they thought that the people who were pulling him out were trying to find out if he was actually buried in a Neil Young shirt. You know, you ever hear that one?
Yeah, but I know these people that own this, and they're 99% sure it was a homeless person, because in those woods back there, I talked to the detectives also that night, that day, and that night, the next day. Homeless people, they call them transients.
Yeah.
Were staying back there, and they would transit from up here to go across the street to those restaurants, the dumpsters and so forth and so on, and they were transitioning through this area.
Oh, I see.
And they think it was one homeless person that just maybe looking for jewelry or looking for something. You know.
That's sad.
They also told me, the detectives, that hadn't it been Ronnie Van Zant or a celebrity name, you'd never hear about it.
Yeah.
Because cemeteries are damaged and vandalized every night all across this country.
I believe it. I've seen it all. I've seen it all over Paris.
Every cemetery, people go kick over headstones. Especially in a lot of Jewish cemeteries, people go in there and kick over headstones.
Oh, that's sad.
Cemetery every night. And if it hadn't been a celebrity or hadn't been Ronnie Van Zant, you'd never heard about it. It would have been sealed back up and it'd been all over.
Yeah.
You know. And what got me was he said that people go out with old cemeteries. They go out to metal detectors, and they'll find where the grave is, and they'll find if there's any jewelry or gold, and they'll take post hole diggers.
Oh, probably when they weren't digging them so deep and everything, and yeah.
Pull up.
That's sad.
You know, and throw the bones back in the hole and keep the jewelry and stuff.
Yeah.
So that goes on all the time, especially in old cemeteries.
Can you? Were you at Ronnie's funeral?
No, I was in the hospital.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you didn't get to pay your last respects.
And they didn't even tell me he was dead until I got in the hospital a month later.
No kidding. Oh my God, I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah, my girlfriend, I got in the hospital, I said, I want to go see Ronnie. And she said, all right, let's go see Ronnie. And we're driving out to his house, and she turns in here. And what are you doing here? I said, we're going to see Ronnie. She said, this is where he's at. And he didn't make it. Oh man, I was just devastated. Because they said we didn't want to upset you in the hospital.
Of course. Yeah, you were recovering. God, I didn't even think about that.
Yeah, that was tough.
I noticed they have bench here. Brief candle, both ends burning, an endless mile, a bus wheel turning, a friend to share, a lonesome time, handshake and a sip of wine. Say it loud and let it ring, that we're all part of everything, the future, present, and the past. Fly on, proud bird, you're free at last. Charlie Daniels.
Charlie Daniels did that.
That's wonderful.
Charlie Daniels had that.
He called himself the Mississippi Kid, didn't he, Ronnie? Yeah. Mississippi Kid, for the Mississippi Kid. And this is a little harder to read, but there's a little plaque attached. So yeah, they actually pulled that back, that whole slat right there, pulled that up, and we're pulling the casket out, and that's how they found it halfway out of this thing. You heard Gene say that when he came here originally, they didn't have that crypt for Ronnie yet, so he was somewhere else. He was telling me that it was in an unmarked crypt right here until they could get the one that he was in and then moved from here. Huh, never knew that. We're over here at Riverside Memorial. This is the Vanzant section. This is where Ronnie was moved to, correct, Gene?
Yeah. Yeah, after his mausoleum got broke into, we were able to move to. Right under our feet.
Now, why did they move him from a different cemetery when that happened? What was the reasoning for that?
Well, this is where the Vanzants wanted him buried from the start. And then after the mausoleum got broke into, it was next of kin that was in charge of his moving or whatever. And so next of kin was one of his daughters, and then he had 2 daughters, or 2 different wives. And so the Vanzants said that we want to bring him over here, and that kind of overrode Judy. And so they put him right here, where the Vanzants were all going to be at eventually.
There's Ronnie. And right over here is Lacey, his father, mother. So one of the cool things Gene is doing is he actually has shirts for sale, and the proceeds from those shirts is they're going to try and create a Curtis Lowe store out at the crash site in Mississippi, and so Gene will contribute that money. So he brought a couple of shirts for me to check out. I'm going to buy a couple, at least one for me, and I'm going to send one out to one of my Patreons, and yeah, help support the cause. This was such a great day. So here's one of the shirts, has all of the deceased band members' names on there. So the back of the shirt says that. And then he's given me this one. Isn't that great? All the members of the band that passed away. Steve, Cassie, Dean, and Ronnie. And there's the Curtis Lowe shirt. That is cool. Then he also gave me this Hell House shirt. He actually gave me 4 shirts. So if you want one, hit him up through the email address I'm gonna post here. So Gene, thank you so much for hanging out with me today. This was a total blast. If someone wants to take a tour with you, you have a email account they can contact you. It's hangingwithgeneodom@gmail.com, and you have a YouTube account. What's your YouTube channel?
Good Lord, I don't know.
I think it's Gene Odom, isn't it?
Hanging with Gene.
Hanging with Gene.
Hanging with Gene Odom, yeah. And then you said hanging with Gene Odom at
gmail.com.
gmail.com. If y'all want to do a tour of those Skynyrd haunts or whatever, just let me know.
And you write songs, so you're going to be posting some of your parody songs.
Yeah, I got a bunch of gimmick stuff I write. I'm going to be doing on my YouTube. I got a bunch of gimmicks, and y'all get ready for Gene Odom Gone Wild on my YouTube channel.
There you go, Hanging with Gene Odom on YouTube, and Hanging with Gene Odom at gmail.com. Thank you, Gene.
Thank you. Thank you for doing the tour.